My stepdaughter called me not her real mom. At graduation, I stopped paying tuition. I want to thank my real mom for always believing in me, Emma said into the microphone, her eyes scanning the graduation crowd until they found her biological mother in the third row. Not once did she look toward me, sitting in the front row where I'd been for every school event, every recital, every parent-teacher conference for the past 15 years. My name is Patricia Morgan. I'm 52 years old, a senior financial advisor at Meridian Wealth Management in Denver, Colorado. In that moment, sitting in that uncomfortable auditorium chair with my hands folded in my lap, I felt something shift inside me. Not anger exactly, more like a cold, calculating clarity I recognized from my most difficult client negotiations. Emma's biological mother, Janet, was beaming as if she'd actually raised this girl. The same Janet who'd abandoned Emma when she was 7, who'd missed birthdays, holidays, and homework tears. The same woman who hadn't contributed a single dollar to Emma's $53,000 annual tuition at Colorado University, which I'd been covering entirely from my personal savings. I didn't make a scene. I simply sat there, applauding politely when Emma received her bachelor's degree and began planning. By the time we reached the reception, I'd already made my first decision. "Congratulations, sweetheart," I said to Emma, hugging her gently. "I'm so proud of what you've accomplished." She barely looked at me, too busy posing for photos with Janet and fielding compliments from relatives who hadn't seen her in years. I watched, taking mental notes of every slight, every dismissive glance. When Emma was 7 and her father David brought her into my life, she was a scared little girl who cried for her mommy every night. David had full custody after Janet disappeared with her boyfriend to find herself in California. I was the one who held Emma through nightmares, taught her to ride a bike, helped her with algebra, and later drove her to take the SATs twice, until she got the score she needed. I met David in 2008 at a financial planning seminar. He was recently divorced, struggling to balance single parenthood with his job as an electrical engineer. We bonded over coffee afterward, talking about investment strategies and the challenges of raising children. I was 37, had never been married, and had always wanted kids but focused on building my career instead. Our relationship developed slowly, carefully. David was cautious about introducing anyone to Emma, and I respected that. When I finally met her 6 months later, she was polite but distant. I didn't try to be her mother immediately. I just tried to be someone she could trust. The first breakthrough came during her 8th birthday party. Janet had promised to come, but never showed. Emma spent the entire day watching the door, and when it became clear her mother wasn't coming, she locked herself in her room. I found her there 2 hours later, still in her party dress, crying into her pillow. "She promised," Emma whispered. "I know, honey. Sometimes adults break promises, and it's not fair. Will you break promises too?" I sat on her bed, choosing my words carefully. "I can't promise I'll never make mistakes, but I can promise I'll always try my best to be here for you." That was the beginning of our real relationship. I became Emma's consistent presence, the one who showed up, who remembered, who cared about the small things. When David and I married 2 years later, Emma asked if she could call me Mom. I told her she could call me whatever felt right. For years, everything felt right. Emma and I developed our own traditions. Saturday morning pancakes, annual mother-daughter shopping trips, late-night talks about boys and dreams and fears. David often joked that Emma and I were more alike than he and Emma were, both stubborn, both planners, both terrible at backing down from an argument. When Emma started high school, I began setting aside money for her college fund. As a financial advisor, I understood the importance of compound interest and long-term planning. By the time she was a junior, I had accumulated $127,000 specifically earmarked for her education. But Emma had her sights set on Colorado University's prestigious business program, which cost significantly more than state schools. The total 4-year IE cost would be approximately $212,000. David and I discussed it extensively. His salary as an engineer was solid but not exceptional. My income was higher, and I had better savings discipline. "I'll cover it," I told him one evening in early 2019. "Emma's worked so hard, and this program could set her up for life. Patricia, that's an enormous amount of money. She's worth it," I said simply. And I meant it. Throughout Emma's freshman year, Janet remained largely absent. She'd surface occasionally with phone calls and Facebook comments, but she lived in Oregon with her third husband and showed little interest in Emma's daily life. Emma seemed fine with this arrangement. She rarely brought up her biological mother, and when she did, it was usually with indifference. But something changed during Emma's sophomore year. Janet began calling more frequently, usually when she needed something advice about her marriage, money for car repairs, or emotional support during her various crises. Emma, now 19 and naturally sympathetic, began responding to these calls. Noticed Emma becoming more secretive, spending hours on phone calls she'd take outside or in her room. When I asked about it, she'd brush me off with vague answers about friend drama or school stuff. The first real warning sign came during Emma's winter break in her junior year. She was home for 3 weeks, and I'd planned several mother-daughter activities, our traditional cookie baking day, shopping for spring clothes, and a weekend spa trip we'd been doing annually since she was 14. Actually, Patricia, Emma said, on December 20th, I think I'm going to skip the spa trip this year. Janet invited me to visit her in Oregon. The way she said Patricia instead of Mom hit me immediately. She hadn't used my first name in years. Oh, I managed. When did this come up? She's been planning it for a while. I think it would be good for us to reconnect, you know? She's my biological mother. There it was, that phrase that would come to haunt our interactions. Biological mother. As if biology trumped 15 years of daily presence, support, and love. Emma went to Oregon and returned different. More distant. More critical of small things that had never bothered her before. She complained about my cooking, rolled her eyes at my advice, and started spending more time texting than talking during our drives. When spring tuition was due, $2,600, I paid it without hesitation. Emma was my daughter in every way that mattered, and I wasn't going to let temporary teenage moodiness affect her education, but the changes weren't temporary. Emma's senior year was marked by increasing coldness toward me and growing reverence for Janet. She started talking about Janet's wisdom and free spirit, conveniently forgetting that Janet's free spirit had led her to abandon her 7-year-old daughter. The breaking point should have been Easter dinner 2023. Emma was home from school, and I'd spent all day preparing her favorite meal, herb-crusted salmon, roasted vegetables, and the lemon cake I'd made for her birthday every year since she was 8. This is good, Emma said, picking at her salmon. But Janet makes this incredible Pacific Northwest version with locally sourced ingredients. She's really into sustainable living now. That sounds nice, I replied, though internally I was screaming. I'd been making this exact salmon recipe for Emma for over a decade, perfecting it based on her preferences, and now it wasn't good enough because Janet had discovered sustainability. You know, Emma continued, Janet was telling me how much she regrets not being more involved in my life. She said she was dealing with severe depression and addiction issues, but she's worked through all of that now. She's a completely different person. David cleared his throat uncomfortably. He remembered Janet's issues, primarily her inability to hold a job, maintain relationships, or show up when she was needed. People can change, I said carefully. I'm glad she's doing better. She really is. She's been sober for 3 years, and she's working as a life coach now. She helps people overcome their past mistakes and build better futures. I bit my tongue. Janet was a life coach who'd spent 15 years avoiding the biggest responsibility of her life, but apparently that qualified her to advise others. After dinner, I was cleaning dishes when I overheard Emma on the phone with Janet in the living room. No, she doesn't really understand me the way you do, Emma was saying. Patricia's nice and everything, but she's so rigid and controlling. Like, she tracks every penny I spend and wants to know exactly how I'm doing in every class. You get that I'm an adult now. I stood at the sink, holding a wet plate, feeling like I'd been slapped. Rigid and controlling. That's what 15 years of caring, involvement, and financial support had earned me in Emma's eyes. I started documenting things after that. Not out of malice, but from a financial advisor's instinct for record-keeping. I noted every tuition payment, every expense, every phone call where Emma praised Janet while dismissing me. Fall 2023 tuition, $27,200, paid September 1st. Spring 2024 tuition, $27,200, paid January 15th. Books, supplies, and miscellaneous expenses, $3,400 per semester. Additional costs, I covered. Emma's car insurance, cell phone, spending money, spring break trips, sorority fees. Total amount invested in Emma's college education by graduation, $198,750. Total amount contributed by Janet, $0. 2 weeks before graduation, Emma called to discuss the ceremony logistics. So Janet's definitely coming, she said, excitement clear in her voice. She's so proud of me for graduating. She said she always knew I'd be successful because I inherited her determination and independence. That's nice, I said, adding another note to my growing file. And I'm giving a speech as class secretary. so I'm working on thanking everyone who helped me get here. I'm sure you'll do wonderfully. What I didn't say was that I'd been the one encouraging Emma to run for class secretary, helping her prepare campaign materials, and coaching her through her nervousness about public speaking. But apparently Janet's long-distance belief in her was more meaningful than my hands-on support. The day of graduation arrived unseasonably cold for May in Colorado. I wore my navy suit, the one Emma had helped me pick out 3 years earlier for a major client presentation. "You look like a person who gets things done," she'd said then, grinning with pride. Now, sitting in that auditorium, I watched Emma fidget with her graduation cap and scan the crowd until she spotted Janet. The smile that spread across her face when she saw her biological mother was brighter than any expression she'd directed toward me in months. When Emma's turn came to speak, she walked to the podium with confidence I'd helped her build through years of encouragement and practice. "I want to thank my real mom for always believing in me," she said, and those 7 words crystallized everything that had been building for 2 years. Real mom. Not the woman who'd raised her, supported her, or invested nearly $200,000 in her future. The woman who'd shown up for a graduation ceremony was her real mom. I didn't react visibly. 15 years of client meetings and difficult negotiations had taught me to control my expressions, but I was already calculating. At the reception, afterward, I approached Emma with genuine congratulations. She was surrounded by friends and distant relatives, all eager to celebrate her achievement. "I'm so proud of you," I told her, meaning it despite everything. "Thanks, Patricia," she replied, already looking past me toward Janet, who was holding court near the refreshment table, telling anyone who'd listen about her daughter's accomplishments. That evening, back at home, I opened my laptop and began researching graduate school programs. Emma had been accepted to Colorado University's MBA program and was planning to start in the fall. The program cost $3,500 per year for 2 years. I'd already mentioned to Emma that I'd continue supporting her through graduate school. It was an offhand comment made months earlier when we were still in a good place and I still believed I was her mom in every way that mattered. But things had changed. I spent the weekend thinking, reviewing my records, and considering my options. On Monday morning, I called Emma. "Hi, sweetheart. I hope you're still enjoying your graduation celebration." "Oh, hi, Patricia. Yeah, it's been great. Janet and I went out for brunch this morning, and we talked about everything. She's been so supportive." "That's wonderful. I'm calling about your graduate school plans. I need to discuss some changes in my financial situation." "What kind of changes?" "Well, I've been reviewing my records, and I realize I've invested $198,750 in your undergraduate education. That's significantly more than I initially projected, and it's impacted my retirement planning." "Okay." Emma's tone was cautious now. "I think it's time for you to take more responsibility for your education costs. You're an adult now, as you've mentioned, and I believe it would be good for you to have more independence in financing your future." "What does that mean exactly?" "It means I won't be able to continue covering your graduate school expenses. You'll need to explore other options, student loans, scholarships, or perhaps family support from other sources." There was a long silence. "Patricia, you can't be serious. We talked about this. You said you'd help with graduate school." "I said I'd help, and I have. I've contributed nearly $200,000 to your education. But I think it's time for your real mom to start contributing to your real expenses." Another silence. Longer this time. "You're doing this because of what I said at graduation. I'm doing this because I've realized that my role in your life has been primarily financial, and that role is no longer sustainable for me." "That's not—" "I didn't mean—" "Emma, you've made it clear over the past 2 years that Janet is your real mother, the person you turn to for support and guidance. I respect that. But real mothers also provide real financial support. You know, Janet can't afford graduate school. That's not my responsibility anymore. I've done my part. Patricia, please. I was just emotional at graduation. You know you're important to me. I am sure Janet will help you figure out alternative arrangements. She's a life coach now, so she should be able to guide you through this transition." I hung up feeling calmer than I had in months. Within an hour, David was calling. "Patricia, what's going on?" Emma just called me in tears. "I've decided not to fund her graduate school." "Why?" "We can afford it." "We can afford it, but I don't choose to afford it. There's a difference." David came home early that day, and we had our most serious conversation in years. "She's been taking you for granted," he admitted. "I've noticed it too, but I didn't know how to address it. She's an adult. She can make her own choices about who she considers family, but I can make my own choices about how I spend my money. What if she apologizes?" David, this isn't about an apology. This is about respect and recognition. Emma has spent 2 years making it clear that Janet is her real mother while treating me like a convenient financial resource. I'm not interested in funding someone who sees me that way. That evening, Emma came over. She'd been crying, and for a moment, she looked like the little girl who'd needed comfort after her 8th birthday party. Patricia, can we talk? Of course. We sat in the living room where I'd helped her with homework for years, where we'd talked about her dreams and fears, where I'd watched her grow into a confident young woman. I know what I said at graduation hurt you. Emma, it wasn't just graduation. It's been 2 years of you turning to Janet for emotional support while expecting me to provide financial support. I'm not a bank. That's not how I see you. Isn't it? When's the last time you asked my advice about something important? When's the last time you called me just to talk? Not because you needed something? When's the last time you introduced me as your mom instead of by my first name? She was quiet, thinking. I guess I started seeing Janet as the fun parent, and you as the responsible one. And maybe I took you for granted because you were always there, while Janet was special because she wasn't. Emma, I want you to understand something. I chose to be your mother every single day for 15 years. I chose to pay for your education, support your dreams, and put your needs ahead of my own wants. Those were choices, not obligations. I know. But I can also choose to stop making those choices, especially when they're not valued or appreciated. Emma started crying again. What can I do to fix this? I don't think you can, honey. And I don't think you should have to. You're an adult, and if Janet is the mother you want, then that's your right. But actions have consequences, and part of being an adult is accepting those consequences. So you're never going to help me again? I'll always love you, Emma. But our relationship has changed, and my financial support needs to change with it. What? About graduate school? I've already been accepted. I'm supposed to start in August. Then you need to figure out how to make that work. Student loans, scholarships, or maybe Janet can help. She's been giving you advice for 2 years. Maybe she can give you some practical support too. Emma left that night without resolution, and I felt terrible but also relieved. I'd been clear about my boundaries, and now Emma had to decide what she really valued. Over the next few weeks, Emma tried various approaches. She had David talk to me. I stayed firm. She had Janet call me to work things out. I told Janet that, since she was Emma's real mother, she was welcome to take real responsibility. She wrote me a long email about how sorry she was and how much she valued me. I responded that I appreciated her apology, but my decision remained unchanged. Finally, 6 weeks after graduation, Emma made an appointment to see me at my office. I want to hire you as my financial advisor, she said. Emma, you don't have any assets to manage. No, but I want your professional advice about my situation. I gestured to the chair across from my desk, the same chair where I'd counseled hundreds of clients over the years. What's your question? I have $73,000 in student loan debt from undergraduate school that I didn't know about until last week. Apparently, you were covering my payments as well as tuition. I nodded. I'd been making Emma's loan payments automatically for 4 years to protect her credit score. Graduate school will cost $69,000 total. I can get additional student loans to cover most of it, but I'll graduate with about $135,000 in total debt. Starting salaries in my field are around $65,000. What do you advise? Honestly? Yes. Don't go to graduate school yet. Work for a few years, pay down your undergraduate debt, and save money. Then pursue your MBA when you can afford it better, or find an employer who will contribute to tuition. How long would that take? If you're disciplined with your money, probably 5 to 7 years. Emma was quiet for a few minutes. Janet thinks, I should just take the loans and worry about paying them back later. Janet doesn't have any experience with student loan debt or financial planning. No, she doesn't. We sat in silence. Patricia, I think I understand now what I did. What did you do? I treated you like you were just the person who paid for things while treating Janet like she was the person who mattered emotionally. But Janet doesn't know how to handle real problems, and you do. Emma, I want you to know that paying for things was never a burden when I felt valued and appreciated. I was happy to support you because I loved you and believed in your future. Do you still believe in my future? Yes. But I believe you need to start building it yourself. What if I asked you to be my mom again? Really asked, not just expected? Emma, I've always been your mom in my heart. But being someone's mom isn't just a title. It's a relationship based on mutual respect and appreciation. You can't just flip a switch and expect everything to go back to the way it was. So this is permanent? I don't know. That depends on both of us. Emma did end up deferring graduate school. She got a job at a marketing firm in Denver, moved into a small apartment with roommates, and started learning what financial independence actually looked like. The first few months were rough. She called me several times, frustrated with budgeting and bill paying and the general stress of supporting herself. Each time, I gave her practical advice but didn't offer to solve her problems for her. Janet, meanwhile, didn't adapt well to Emma's new expectations of support. When Emma asked for help with moving expenses, Janet sent $100 and a life coaching book about manifesting abundance. When Emma was stressed about work and needed someone to talk to, Janet was usually busy with her own drama. Gradually, Emma started calling me more, and Janet less. Not because she needed money. I'd made it clear that financial support wasn't automatic anymore, but because she needed actual guidance and perspective. I think I'm finally understanding the difference between someone who loves you and someone who's there for you, Emma told me 6 months after graduation. Janet loves me, but she's never actually been there when things got hard. Being there is a choice people make every day, I replied. It's not always easy or fun, but it's what real relationships require. Will you ever forgive me for not seeing that sooner? Emma, there's nothing to forgive. You were trying to figure out your identity and your relationships. That's normal, but I needed to protect myself from being taken for granted. I miss our Saturday morning pancakes. Me too. A year after graduation, Emma got a promotion and a significant raise. She also received a small inheritance from her grandfather, David's father, who had always treated her like his biological granddaughter. She used the inheritance money to pay down her student loans, and then made an appointment to see me again. Want to start planning for graduate school, she said. With my promotion, I think I can swing it financially if I'm careful. That's great. What's your timeline? I'm thinking 2 years from now. I'll be 25, I'll have 4 years of work experience, and I'll have paid off about half my undergraduate debt. That sounds like a solid plan. Patricia? Yes? Would you help me with the application process? Not financially, but with the essays and interviews and everything? The way you helped me get into undergraduate school? It was the first time in over 2 years that Emma had asked for my emotional support instead of my financial support. I'd be honored to help you with that. And maybe afterward, we could go get pancakes? I smiled. I'd like that very much. Emma did apply to graduate school 2 years later, and she got into 3 excellent programs, including Colorado University. She chose a different school one that offered her a partial scholarship and had a better evening program that would let her keep working. She paid her own way. At her graduate school graduation last month, Emma gave another speech. This time she thanked my mom, Patricia, who taught me that love isn't just about being there for the good times, but about showing up with practical support and real guidance when life gets challenging. I cried, which I hadn't done at her undergraduate graduation. Afterward, at the reception, Emma introduced me to her professors and classmates as her mom. Not her stepmom, not by my first name, just as her mom. I'm so proud, I told her. I couldn't have done it without you, she replied. And I don't just mean financially. I mean, I couldn't have become someone capable of doing this myself if you hadn't shown me what real responsibility and commitment look like. Janet didn't attend Emma's graduate school graduation. She was dealing with her 4th divorce and couldn't find the time to travel. Emma didn't seem to mind. Real moms show up, she said, echoing my words from 4 years earlier. In all the ways that matter. Looking back, I don't regret cutting off Emma's financial support when she was 22. It was the hardest thing I'd ever done as a parent, but it was also the most important. Emma needed to learn the difference between being loved and being supported, between words and actions, between feeling entitled to help and appreciating it. More importantly, I needed to learn that being a mother didn't mean accepting disrespect or being taken for granted. Love without boundaries isn't actually love. It's just enabling Emma and I have a better relationship now than we ever had before. It's built on mutual respect, genuine appreciation, and the understanding that both love and support are choices we make for each other every day. And yes, we still have those Saturday morning pancakes, usually while Emma tells me about her new job in financial planning. Apparently, she decided my rigid approach to money management was actually something she wanted to learn. She's going to be an excellent financial advisor. She's learned firsthand that the most valuable things in life require investment, patience, and the wisdom to know when tough love is actually love. Real mothers, we've both learned, do whatever is necessary to help their children grow, even when it breaks their hearts in the short term. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is let someone figure out what they've lost and what they need to do to earn it back. The money I saved by not paying for Emma's graduate school, I've invested it in a fund for my future grandchildren, Emma's children, when she has them, because I believe in second chances and long-term planning. But those grandchildren will grow up understanding that support is a gift, not a guarantee, and that the people who show up consistently deserve gratitude, not just for the big moments, but for all the small ones in between. That's what real families do.